Welcome to Stories Junction. Let's begin today's story. The first time Olivia brought up the idea of an open marriage, I thought she was joking. We had met in college, married young, and had a son, Lucas, by the time we were 25. Life hadn't been easy, but we built something real, or at least I believed we had. We were sitting at the dinner table, the soft clinking of silverware filling the silence between us. Lucas was sprawled on the living room floor, lost in his toys. Olivia swirled the wine in her glass absent-mindedly before speaking, as if she were tossing out an offhand remark. "Have you ever thought about seeing other people?" I nearly choked on my drink. "What?" She smiled, but her eyes were watching me too carefully. "I mean, don't you ever get bored?" "Bored," I repeated, my mind struggling to catch up. "Olivia, we've been married for 8 years. We have a kid." "Exactly." She leaned in slightly, her voice calm, as if explaining something obvious. "We've been together for so long, and I just think maybe it would be healthy to explore, to rediscover ourselves." "Explore what exactly?" My pulse was quickening. She hesitated for a second, but then met my gaze. "Other people." The words hung in the air like a poisonous mist. My stomach twisted. "Are you serious right now?" Olivia sighed, rubbing her temple. "Ryan, listen. I'm not saying I don't love you. I do. But love and experience don't have to be mutually exclusive. Other couples do this. It's not unheard of." I scoffed. "So what? You want permission to sleep with someone else?" "It's not just about that," she said quickly. "It's about trust. Freedom." I let out a bitter laugh. "Trust? You think sleeping with other people builds trust?" "It's not cheating if we agree to it," she replied, her voice colder now. That night was just the beginning. Olivia didn't let it go. It became a conversation we had over and over, her arguments shifting from reasoned explanations to outright pleas. She painted the idea as something liberating, something we needed. I saw it differently. To me, it was a crack in the foundation of everything we had built. She insisted an open marriage would reignite our passion, as if love was some dying fire that could only be rekindled by strangers' hands. I told her it was a betrayal, plain and simple. Every conversation felt like a rerun of the same unbearable episode. "Ryan," she'd say, her voice soft, careful, like she was reasoning with a child. "This isn't about something being wrong with us. It's about who we are as individuals." I clenched my jaw. "We're married, Olivia. We're supposed to be a team." Her face would tighten, her patience wearing thinner with every passing argument. The discussions turned into fights. Calm debates became shouting matches. Lucas would retreat to his room, headphones clamped over his ears, pretending he couldn't hear his parents' voices crashing through the walls. I started going to bed with a knot in my stomach every night, praying that this was just a phase. That one day, I'd wake up and she'd tell me she'd been wrong. Then came the night she dropped the bomb. It was late. I had just finished washing the dishes, the hum of the sink filling the silence. Olivia stood by the counter, cradling a glass of wine, her fingers gripping the stem like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. "Ryan," she said, her voice unnervingly calm. "We need to talk." I knew that tone. It was the one she used when she was about to say something I didn't want to hear. I grabbed a dish towel and dried my hands. "What now?" She hesitated, glancing at the floor before meeting my gaze. "I've already met someone." The words slammed into me like a wrecking ball. For a second, they didn't register. They didn't make sense. "You what?" "I haven't done anything yet," she said quickly, as if that made it better. "But I want to, and I want your blessing." I stared at her, my heartbeat a deafening roar in my ears. She wasn't the woman I'd fallen in love with. She wasn't the mother of my child. She was a stranger wearing Olivia's face. "You've already met someone?" I repeated, the words foreign on my tongue. "And now you want my blessing?" She set the wine glass down and stepped forward, her hands outstretched like she could somehow soften the blow. "Ryan, please. This doesn't have to be a bad thing." "A bad thing?" I laughed, but it came out hollow. "This is a nightmare." I stepped back, the room suddenly too small, too suffocating. "Ryan." I held up a hand, stopping her. "You know what? Fine. You want open marriage? Do whatever the hell you want. She flinched at my tone. But don't expect me to stick around and watch you destroy everything we built. Her lips parted, but I was already moving, grabbing my jacket, reaching for the door. Ryan, wait. I didn't. I walked out that night, leaving her alone in the kitchen. I didn't know where I was going. I only knew that I couldn't stay. Not after this. I didn't come home that night. I drove aimlessly through the streets of Redmond, past the empty sidewalks and glowing streetlights, the weight of Olivia's words pressing down on my chest like a vice. Asterisk, I've already met someone, and I want your blessing. Asterisk. How the hell was I supposed to respond to that? I ended up at a 24-hour diner on the outskirts of town, nursing a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. The place was nearly empty, just a couple of truckers at the counter and an old man reading a newspaper. I sat in a booth by the window, staring at my reflection in the glass. I looked like a man who had just lost everything. My phone buzzed on the table. Olivia asterisk, please come home. I stared at the message, my fingers hovering over the screen. Then I turned my phone face down and signaled the waitress for another coffee. I wasn't ready to face her. By the time I finally made it back, the house was dark. I half expected to find her awake, waiting for me, but she wasn't. Her wine glass still sat on the counter, the deep red liquid untouched. The only sign of life was the soft glow of Lucas's nightlight spilling from under his door. I stood outside his room for a long time, listening to the sound of his breathing. He was the only reason I was here, the only reason I hadn't walked away completely. The next few weeks were unbearable. Olivia and I existed like strangers under the same roof. We spoke only when necessary, when coordinating schedules for Lucas, when deciding who was picking him up from school. Every other conversation had already been had, every argument already exhausted. She didn't say much about the man she had met. I didn't ask, but I knew. I knew from the way she stayed out late, from the way she started dressing differently, more effort, more attention to detail, like she was trying to impress someone. I knew from the way she smiled at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. She didn't even have the decency to hide it. I spent my nights in the guest room, lying awake, listening for the sound of the front door opening. Every time she came home late, my stomach twisted into knots, my mind playing out images I didn't want to see. I could feel myself unraveling. One night, I finally confronted her. It was past midnight when she walked through the door, her coat draped over her arm, the faint scent of cologne clinging to her. Not mine. Good night, I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. She sighed, setting her purse on the counter. Ryan, don't what? I pushed away from the wall, stepping closer. Don't acknowledge the fact that my wife is sleeping with another man. She tensed. I told you this wasn't about that. Cut the crap, Olivia. My voice was sharp, laced with something I couldn't hold back anymore. You wanted this. You wanted your freedom. So go ahead. Own it. She exhaled slowly, rubbing her temple. I'm not doing this with you right now. Of course not, I muttered. Wouldn't want to ruin the high from your little date night. Her eyes flashed with something, anger, maybe guilt. You agreed to this, she shot back. No, I said coldly. I gave up fighting. That's not the same thing. For a moment, she just stood there, staring at me like she wanted to say something else. Then she shook her head, turned on her heel, and disappeared down the hallway to our bedroom. Our bedroom. I laughed bitterly to myself. That wasn't ours anymore. Nothing was. That was the night I decided I was done playing by Olivia's rules. I didn't want to be the pathetic husband sitting at home, waiting for his wife to come back from her latest adventure. I didn't want to be the fool who let himself be walked all over. If she wanted an open marriage, I was going to give her one. And that's when Claire came into the picture. Claire was Olivia's best friend. We had known each other for years, holidays, birthday parties, Sunday brunches. She had always been there, a constant presence in the background of our lives. She was recently divorced, and I knew she had never fully approved of Olivia's decision to pursue this experiment. Maybe that's why I texted her that night. Or maybe I just wanted Olivia to feel the kind of pain I was drowning in. The message was simple. Me asterisk, can we talk? She responded almost immediately. Claire asterisk, of course. What's wrong? Asterisk. I stared at my screen for a long time before typing out my next message. Me asterisk, I just need to see a friendly face. Her reply came just seconds later. Claire asterisk, I'm on my way. And just like that, the lines we had never dared to cross before suddenly didn't exist anymore. Asterisk, Claire arrived 20 minutes after I sent the text. When I opened the door, she was standing there in a fitted sweater and jeans, her dark hair pulled into a loose ponytail, eyes filled with concern. I had seen that look before, at dinner parties when Olivia would make some offhand comment about her marriage being comfortable but dull, or the time she had caught us arguing at Lucas's birthday party, my jaw tight, Olivia's arms crossed in defiance. But tonight, the concern was for me. Ryan, she said softly, stepping inside. What's going on? I closed the door behind her, exhaling slowly. I needed to talk to someone who isn't her. She nodded, setting her purse on the counter. I get it. We moved to the couch, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't suffocating. Claire wasn't tiptoeing around the mess of my marriage. She wasn't pretending everything was fine. She saw me, really saw me, and it was enough to make my chest ache. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. I don't know how to be okay with watching my wife walk out the door to be with someone else. I don't even know how to look at her anymore. Claire sighed, tucking one leg under the other as she faced me. You don't have to be okay with it, Ryan. What she's doing, this whole open marriage thing, she's making it seem like it's about exploration, but really, it's just selfish. I let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, well, she doesn't see it that way. Claire hesitated, then reached for my hand. The warmth of her fingers against mine sent an unexpected jolt through me. She's lost, Ryan, but that doesn't mean you have to let her drag you down with her. I swallowed hard, my eyes searching hers. There was something unspoken in the air between us, something dangerous. Maybe it had always been there, buried beneath years of friendship, masked by the roles we had played in each other's lives. But tonight, there was no pretending. Claire, my voice was quiet, but she understood. She didn't pull away. She didn't tell me this was a mistake. Instead, she leaned in. The moment our lips met, I knew there was no coming back from this. I woke up before sunrise, the house eerily silent. Claire was still asleep beside me, her hair fanned out against the pillow, her breathing soft and even. For a moment, I let myself exist in that stillness. No Olivia, no arguments, no suffocating weight on my chest. Then reality came crashing back. I sat up slowly, rubbing a hand down my face. What the hell had I done? Claire stirred beside me, her eyes fluttering open. When she saw the look on my face, she sighed. Regrets already? I shook my head. I don't know what I feel. She pushed herself up on one elbow, studying me. Ryan, don't do that thing where you overthink everything. You didn't cheat. Olivia made the rules, remember? I let out a humorless laugh. Yeah, but I don't think she expected me to follow them. Claire reached for my hand, squeezing lightly. Maybe she should have. I wanted to believe that. I wanted to tell myself that this wasn't revenge, that I hadn't let my anger and resentment push me into something reckless. But deep down, I knew better. I wasn't sure if I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross, or if the line had already been gone the moment Olivia asked for an open marriage. Either way, there was no turning back now. Olivia found out 2 days later. I wasn't even trying to hide it. Maybe a part of me wanted her to know. She came home early from work, stepping inside just as Claire was slipping on her coat. For a second, no one moved. Olivia's eyes darted between us. Taking in the way, Claire's fingers lingered on the strap of her bag, the tension thick enough to strangle the air between us. Then she laughed. Not a real laugh, something cold, bitter, laced with disbelief. Wow, she muttered, shaking her head. I knew you'd do something like this eventually, but Claire? Really? Claire tensed. Olivia. No. Olivia held up a hand. Save it. Then her gaze snapped back to me. Asterisk this asterisk is how you handle things, Ryan. You can't deal with me seeing someone, so you sleep with my best friend? I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. You mean kind of like how you couldn't deal with commitment, so you asked for an open marriage? Her nostrils flared. It's not the same. Why? I tilted my head. Because you got to do it first? She let out a sharp exhale, running a hand through her hair. No, because I was honest about it. I scoffed. Right. You were so honest when you told me you'd met someone after you'd already decided you were going to sleep with him. She flinched, but recovered quickly. At least I didn't go after someone in your life. I pushed off the counter, stepping toward her. You're right. You didn't. You just torched our marriage and expected me to sit here and watch it burn. Claire shifted uncomfortably beside me. Maybe I should go, she muttered, already heading for the door. Yeah, maybe you should, Olivia snapped. Claire hesitated, giving me one last look before stepping outside. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving Olivia and me alone in the thick, suffocating silence. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then, quietly, she asked, "Do you love her?" I stared at her, the weight of everything pressing down on me. Did I? Or had I just wanted to feel something? Something that wasn't resentment, wasn't betrayal, wasn't the hollow ache of losing her before she was even gone? I didn't have an answer, and I think Olivia already knew. The silence between Olivia and me stretched long after Claire left. She was standing by the kitchen island, arms crossed over her chest, fingers gripping her sleeves like she was holding herself together. I was still by the couch, my hands shoved in my pockets, my jaw tight. Are we even pretending to fix this anymore? I asked, finally, my voice flat. Olivia exhaled slowly. Ryan, she hesitated, choosing her words carefully. I didn't do this to hurt you. I let out a bitter laugh. No, you just thought it would be fun. Her eyes flickered with something, guilt maybe. I thought it would help us, she admitted. I thought, if we had more freedom, we'd stop feeling so trapped. I shook my head. Asterisk trapped, asterisk? That's how you see our marriage. She groaned, rubbing her temples. That's not what I meant. But it's what you said. She sighed, looking away. I don't know how to explain it. I stepped closer, my voice quieter now. Try. Her lips pressed together, and for the first time in a long time, I saw a crack in her defenses. Her shoulders sagged. I don't know who I am anymore, Ryan, she admitted. I don't know if I ever really did. I stared at her, trying to make sense of what she was saying. You don't know who you are, so you decided sleeping with someone else would help you figure it out? I wanted to feel something again, she said, voice barely above a whisper. I swallowed hard, anger curling in my gut. And did you? She blinked, caught off guard. Did it work? I pressed. Did sleeping with him fix you? Ryan, because I'll tell you what it did for me. I continued, stepping even closer. It tore everything apart. It made me question every moment we ever shared. It made me feel like a goddamn fool for believing in us. Her eyes shone, but she refused to let the tears fall. I never stopped loving you, she whispered. I clenched my jaw. You have a funny way of showing it. The next few days were tense. We barely spoke unless it was about Lucas. The air between us was thick with unspoken words. Both of us too exhausted to argue, but too bitter to pretend. Then one night, Olivia came home late. Again, I was sitting in the dimly lit living room, a half-empty beer in my hand, watching the clock as the minutes ticked by. When the door finally creaked open, she stepped inside, pausing when she saw me. She was wearing a dress I hadn't seen before. Her makeup was still fresh, her lips slightly smudged, like someone had kissed her and she'd wiped it away. I set the bottle down carefully. Good night. She hesitated, then sighed, slipping off her heels. Ryan, please. Don't. I cut her off, standing. I don't want to hear it. Her shoulders slumped. Then what do you want? I let out a slow breath. I want to stop pretending this isn't killing me. She swallowed. Ryan. No, I said, my voice sharper now. You wanted this. You wanted your freedom, your exploration, your new experiences, but you never once thought about what it would do to me. To us. She looked away. That's not true. Isn't it? I took a step closer, lowering my voice. You know what the worst part is, Olivia? I could have forgiven you. Her head snapped up, eyes wide. If you had just told me you were unhappy, I continued, shaking my head. If you had just talked to me instead of blowing our marriage to hell, I would have fought for you. But now I don't even know who you are. Her breath hitched, and for the first time in weeks, she looked scared. Ryan, don't say that, she whispered. But it's the truth. A heavy silence fell between us. And then, finally, she asked, do you want a divorce? The word hung between us like a loaded gun. I had imagined this moment 1,000 times. thought about what I'd say, how I'd make her understand the damage she had done. But now that it was here, now that she was actually asking, I realized I didn't have an answer. Because even after everything, even after all the pain, all the betrayal, all the ways we had shattered each other, I still wasn't sure I was ready to let go. The morning after Olivia asked if I wanted a divorce, I woke up with a pounding headache and a weight in my chest so heavy I could barely breathe. I lay in bed for a long time, staring at the ceiling, listening to the muffled sounds of her moving around downstairs. It felt surreal, knowing we were at the edge of something irreversible. When I finally dragged myself out of bed and went downstairs, Olivia was sitting at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a coffee mug, her eyes puffy like she hadn't slept either. She looked up when she heard me, her expression unreadable. "Hey." I pulled out a chair and sat across from her, exhaling slowly. "Hey." For a moment, we just sat there in silence. Then she spoke. "I meant what I said last night. If you want out, I won't fight you on it." I studied her, trying to find some trace of the woman I had married. The woman I had built a life with. The woman who, despite everything, I still wanted to believe in. But all I saw was exhaustion. "I don't know what I want," I admitted. She nodded slowly, like she had expected that. "I don't either." Another silence stretched between us. Then, finally, she said, "Maybe that's our answer." I swallowed hard. Maybe. And just like that, the thing we had fought so hard for, the life we had built together, the love that had once felt unshakable, it all started to unravel. We didn't officially call it quits right away. For weeks, we lived in a strange limbo, still sharing the same house, still putting on a brave face for Lucas, still sleeping in the same bed. But the distance between us was impossible to ignore. She stopped coming home late, stopped seeing him, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. One night, as we lay in bed, backs turned to each other, I finally said it. "I think we should separate." I felt her body tense. After a long pause, she whispered, "Yeah, me too." And just like that, it was decided. The next morning, we sat Lucas down and told him the news. He was only 6, too young to fully understand, but old enough to know something was wrong. His little face crumpled, and it shattered me in a way nothing else had. "Are you still going to be my daddy?" he asked, his voice small. I pulled him into my arms, my throat thick with emotion. "Always, buddy, no matter what." Olivia moved out 2 weeks later, into a small apartment across town. We kept things civil for Lucas, agreed on joint custody, split everything as fairly as possible. But it wasn't clean. It wasn't easy, and it sure as hell wasn't painless. Some days, I felt like I had made the right choice. Like walking away was the only way to keep what little of myself I had left. Other days, I missed her so much it physically hurt. I didn't speak to Claire after everything. Whatever had happened between us was a mistake, one fueled by anger and betrayal, not by something real. She understood that, and we let each other go without another word. I heard through mutual friends that Olivia wasn't seeing anyone, that she spent most of her time focused on work and Lucas. I didn't ask for details, and I didn't offer any about myself either. A year later, I ran into Olivia at a coffee shop. She was sitting by the window, stirring her drink absent-mindedly, lost in thought. For a second, I almost walked away. But before I could, she looked up, her eyes meeting mine. There was a flicker of something, surprise, nostalgia, maybe even regret. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey." I hesitated, then sat across from her, just like that morning in our kitchen when we both realized it was over. She studied me for a long moment. "How have you been?" I gave her a small, tired smile. "I'm okay. You?" She nodded. "Yeah, me too." We sat there in comfortable silence, the weight of everything that had happened between us settling into the space between sips of coffee and quiet, unspoken memories. And for the first time in a long time, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't even sad. I was just free. And maybe, in the end, that was enough.